Can I say, oh, now you,
Yeah, now I'm recording. Yeah,
okay,
sorry, I
yeah.
forgot to press it before, but it doesn't matter. So yeah.
With the intro. Great, thank you so much. Thank you guys for inviting me to be your little guinea pig and our ladies in Zoom, a new thing for our modern times that we're going through. So we'll see how this goes. I hope it goes well. I know that the intention of these kinds of meetings is for it to be like interactive and for people to help each other, and that's harder on Zoom. But oh, it's saying my internet connection is unstable. Let me see if I can.
Es otra.
Great. So I hope you guys can hear me okay.
Yes.
Not unstable. Great. Okay, so yeah, I was talking to Marita. I don't remember exactly where this idea came from. I think we were talking about Shiny, right? Because I have had some experience with it recently. But first, let's just, okay. So these slides that I'm showing are available in this GitHub address. I'll let you guys like look it up. So in order to like follow through with me, we're going to be using these slides, and we're going to be using RStudio on the side. So and you need some kind of web browser. Obviously, to go to GitHub, you need a web browser anyway. But just that's it. That's what you're going to need to like follow today's tutorial or presentation. So hopefully people got it. I can go back to the link if I missed it and send messages in the chat. So yeah, please use the chat to ask questions anytime, or let me know if I'm going too fast or anything like that. Yeah, let's try to like have some interaction, even though it's not the most medium. And keep your mics muted, as Marita said, because otherwise, yeah, too many people talking to each other. So that's me. As Marita said, I'm a PhD candidate at UCLA. I'm originally from Brazil, and I study disease transmission, particularly in California sea lions. That's why, hence the picture of me hugging a very real California sea lion. But I do mostly mathematical modeling of disease spread, particularly focusing on serology, antibodies, how antibodies change across time and population. And I've been using R since 2010. I took a class at the end of undergrad, and in my experience. But it's been up and down. I think nowadays I have a lot of like coding experience, but like in the beginning, I like to share this. I did cry in despair. It's when you're starting, it's really hard, but it pays off. And that today I'm like teaching. I help run the R boot camp for first year PhD and master's students at UCLA, at UCLA, and it's been like very gratifying to help people develop their skills because it really helps with their research and their teaching. So my first ever Shiny project was all about the sea lion data set. So we have this amazing data set that dates back to the 80s, and we frequently wanted to like explore little things. So like we would have either my advisor or someone in the group or a collaborator be like, well, but what if we plot the cases just for these particular years and just the females and just the, I don't know, the samples that we tested. And I would be like generating a million plots for all these like little small differences between those plots, just so that we could like look at these things and look at our data. And then we were gonna have like a meeting with more collaborators where I knew like, they told me prepare to like, for people to be asking for different plots. And I'm like, no, there's gotta be a better way to do this. Instead of like me like changing little things in the code to create a million plots. And that's when I heard about Shiny. So I created my first Shiny app just to explore our data set. So it's not public, it's just for me and my collaborators to look at this data set. And it made it like a lot easier for us to understand what was going on in the dynamics of the system that we studied. So taking on that experience, because people knew what that I had done that when COVID. So as I said, I'm in a lab that studies disease transmission, and in particular, I study disease in sea lions, but other people in my lab study viruses, including COVID-19. So in January, when we were all it was still called nCoV, 2019 nCoV, and we were still wondering whether it was going to go pandemic or not. My advisor came to me and said, we have this model of traveler screening. So it was a model that a student had already graduated from my lab, who's now postdoc at the University of Chicago, had developed to show that fever screening in airports is not very effective. Essentially, the reason for that is because you have to be very lucky to get a person who has a fever but is not super sick yet, so they're not in the hospital and they're still able to travel. So that's the window for you to get that is really small. And we wanted to change this and make it a COVID model. But in the beginning, in January, as I was saying, we didn't know, the model relies heavily on these things about the life history of COVID. So if you've been following in the media, so there's this number called the R0, which is super important. And then we didn't know exactly what it was. There's the incubation period. There's all these little things, how many people actually develop a fever. And we did our best effort for the paper to get good estimates for these things. But we also wanted to create an app so that if we found out that the parameter values were different, or if we wanted to simulate a scenario where they were very different from what we were thinking, we could just like go and do it easily. So I took the model, I took the code that was already done for this model, and I put it in an app where you could change all the parameters for the model and see what happens. So you guys, it's still available. You can go to that link and click and play with it. And the code is on my GitHub down there in the publication. But that was a very fun experience. And I think it'll be great if people knew how to do it. So that's why I volunteered to tell you about it. So basically, what is Shiny? So it's an R package, obviously, good, that will help you build an interactive web application. So something that the user can interact with, and it's on a browser like Firefox or Chrome, but it doesn't require learning any like web development skills. It's really just our code. We have some chat. Are you guys looking at it, or do I link the GitHub? Oh,
yeah, we're looking at it. It's just the GitHub presentation.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, how do I close this now? The chat is on top of the slide for me. Oh, great, it's on. So it's an R package that will help you build interactive app applications without knowing about web development, which is something that I absolutely do not know about. Don't ask me about it. So users can interact with your data and with your analysis. So it can be for research, like I did with the COVID paper. It can be for your own purpose, like my sea lion data set, or it could be for teaching. And a lot of people have been using these things, especially here at UCLA, I teach classes on modeling, and it's really cool to like let the students explore different models using a Shiny app. And you can find examples, tutorials, and further information in Shiny.RStudio. Shiny was developed by the same people who developed RStudio. So on this website, and we're gonna be like using it pretty heavily throughout this presentation. So we're gonna take an example from it. And further on, when you guys are actually trying to do something, you're also gonna be using it. Can you? Sorry, I'm skipping this. Do you guys see my arrow? My mouse?
Yes, we can see your mouse.
Awesome, great. So we're gonna, any questions? Should I pause? I think this is just my introduction. So for us to learn how it works, I would like to look at an example. So we're gonna look at an example that uses this data set called world phones, which is usually preloaded into every R session. and we're gonna do a little, it has like the number of phone numbers that exist per region in like the 1950s. And we're gonna do a little like visualization tool based on that. So we're gonna look at it. So this is the link. I'm gonna open it in 1 second. And this is what it's gonna look like. So as you can see, on the left-hand side, you have this interactive drop-down menu with the region that you want to visualize. And on this is the left-hand side, looking at your screen. And the right-hand side, you have the histogram that shows you the actual data. So I'm gonna, if you open this page, and I hope, are people okay opening it? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can share the link. Oh, someone already did that. Thanks.
Kind of like that hard for me to do it, so if someone else can do it.
Oh, thanks, Teresa.
Yeah, thanks so much. So if you go on it, on top, you're going to see the actual app. So this part that I'm showing you right now is the actual app. And if you scroll down on the bottom, and this is a feature just the gallery. When we do the app, we're not going to have that. If you scroll down, you have the code. So the code is this part right here.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the things, the elements of Shiny app? So you have server.r, and the UI, UI.r. So UI stands for user interface. So all of the code that sets up like the little interactive bars, the little pieces of text, I don't know, the title, the way that it's set up. So what decides that the plot's going to be on the right and the drop-down menu on the left. These things are very like about the web application are going to be in the user interface, the UI, and your actual like R code. So if you're loading data, if you're generating plots, if you're running any kind of analysis, because my the COVID app runs a bunch of analysis. It actually takes, I don't know if anyone actually clicked on it, but it takes a while for it to run because on the background is like running the model. So all of that goes with the server. So it runs your analysis, gathers your data, and generates your plot. Usually, if you have, we're going to talk about ideas of like Shiny apps that you can do at the end. But if you have, the best way to start on your own little project would be to like maybe take code that you've already done, a figure that you've already done, and you're like, there's an element here that could be interactive. And then you're going to reuse a lot of that code into your server.r. And for the UI, we're always going to be looking at examples from the internet that we can copy. So basically, these are the two for the example that we're looking at. Server.r generates the output, so it generates the plot that you're going to see. It can be a plot, it can be a table, but in this example, it's just one histogram. And UI reads the input. The input is what the user is like offering. Like, so the interactive part is given by the input. So where do we see these things here? So, oh yeah, and one more thing. This is supposed to be before that slide. Always keep, we're going to do this together in a second, but I wanted to highlight it, so just say it twice. When we create our Shiny apps, we're going to have a folder, name your folder whatever you want, and you always keep the UI.r and the server.r together in that folder. Okay, so to make sure that R understands which server file goes with which user interface. So always keep them together.
Okay.
So now let's get started. Let's do it together. So first I'm gonna where's the example? Cell phones by region. I'm actually copying it from the chat. So if you haven't done it, you can do it with me because I'm not doing it any faster than anyone else. Where's my Chrome? Here. I'm going to do a new share. screen. Great. So this is it. Hope everyone's here with me. Great. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this code. And let's do it in a very simple way. We're just going to like open our RStudio and create those two files and then copy and paste it. So actually, maybe I should have shared my RStudio. Great. So my RStudio is already open and there's already some code here. So what we're going to do is do a new session. New session. And now I think I have to share. Can I just share my screen instead of the? I think I can.
We're looking at your RStudio. Yeah.
Well, I just clicked on a new session, so it's starting fresh like that.
Oh,
okay. One thing that I will highlight, the first thing is that when you open a fresh session in your RStudio, you're going to see right here your R version. Shiny requires that your R version is at least 3.0.2. If you see a number right here, it says 3.0.2, and I think it's called Frisbee sailing. This one I have feathers free. If you see a number right here that is less than that, you're going to have to go to CRAN, download R, install it as if you're doing it for the first time, close RStudio and open it again, which might be a lot to do as you follow along, but I just wanted to highlight that if your number is less than 3.0.2, it's not going to work probably. Great, so now we're going to set up our files. We're going to need two. Untitled 1 and Untitled 2, but that's not what we want. So we're going to save that. So I'm going to go to my desktop. Do you guys see the save as everything, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna call it new shiny app. Oh, sorry, new folder. App for the folder, and then the two files are gonna be UI.r, and then the other one save as. Okay, so now I have two empty files, UI and server, and they are in the same folder.
Do they always have to have these names? It always has to be server and UI.
I don't think so. I think you can change it.
I'm not sure. Like all the time I see these names.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
I think it's possible to change it, but you would that's definitely the default. That's what our studio is going to be expecting.
Okay.
That's why like it's important to use this folder itself to like organize itself.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm gonna create this nice. I'm gonna go back to this. I'm gonna copy the code that we have here into. So you guys can copy it into your RStudio while I very quickly try to share a portion of my Hopefully it will work. Okay, you guys see my screen. So I'm gonna copy this into RStudio. The button was right there. Okay. So without like looking at the code very carefully, so the first thing, if you didn't see the message, in order for this to work, you're going to have to install the package. Mm-hmm. Right? Shiny. from me, it's going to tell me that it's not going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Oh, it's installing some new dependencies. Who knows? There it goes. Installing new version of Shiny. Great. Done. And then save this. We can click on right here. You have run app. I usually run external, which means it's going to open on my Chrome, but viewer panel or window is fine. So if you click on this, it doesn't matter if you're looking at UI or server, whatever is open, you just click on it and let's do it. Ta-da! So this is running locally on my computer. This is not the internet. The internet tab's still over here, but this is the Shiny app running from my computer. And this is the thing that we're going to be looking at and changing and doing things. Did everyone manage to get to this point?
Yeah, cool.
Great.
I've never done this. I'm learning as we go along, so that's very exciting.
Great. So let's look at it a little bit. So I'm going to actually go back to PowerPoint. Sorry, guys. Okay. Well, it's much easier when it's not on Zoom. Great. So you can interact with it and click on it. So I hope everyone got at least 6. Now let's look at the code. I have it here. It's the same from the, it's just like a screen, but it's the same code that I had on my R Studio. So as I said, server.r generates the output. This is it right here. And UI.r reads the input. This is it right here. And the bar is on the way. Do you guys see this bar here?
Yes.
Get rid of it. It's a little bit on the way, but that's fine. So what is the output in this particular app? It's that plot. So that plot is called tone plot. And here you have the actual code that runs it. So this is how it works. It's always going to be output and then $. And here you can decide what your plot's going to be named. In this case, it's tone plot. And then you do render plot. We're going to copy this part, parentheses, squiggly brackets. I still think that it's very weird to have squiggly brackets inside the parentheses, but that's how it works. We're not going to worry about it. We're going to copy it. And just the code that generates the plot. We're done with the server after this. All of this is always going to be inside this like function input output. You could change the name of the input and the output, but I'd never do that. Just copy that part, and this is going to be the part that we care about, that we're going to be messing with. And then on the UI side, that's when we tell R we want to see a plot, and we want to see a plot that's called tone plot. So right here on the main panel, we're going to say, we're going to have the function plot output, and then within quotation marks, that's the name of the plot. And then how do you actually make it interactive? So it's by using input. Highlighted in green. So here you're going to have the sidebar panel has this function called select input, which is one of the many widgets that we have in Shiny. And we're going to like later look at a gallery and copy the code. But basically, the first argument is the name of whatever it is, whatever your input is. And then here on the plot, the title of the plot is the name of the region. So it's input $ region. If you put a different word here, you put a different word here. This is the title. So if you go back and look at the plot, on top of the drop-down menu, it says region : that's the title. You can write whatever you want here. And then the way that the function select input works is that you're going to have choices equal to a list, a vector, an array of the choices that you want to be able to see on your drop-down menu.
Okay.
This is it, basically, close. So let's look at it on my, our studio.
1 second while you change screens. For people having trouble, we have some people having trouble in the chat. You do need to have the server, correct me if I'm wrong, you do need to have the server.r and the UI.r on the same location. So it can be, for example, on your downloads folder, on your desktop folder, or something like that. But you do need the two scripts, the two files together in the same place. Otherwise, you won't be able to run it.
Yeah.
So Tessa and Barbara.
It is actually, yeah, if you have a very simple, which this one is, a simple Shiny app, it's actually possible to put server and UI together in the same file, but I don't recommend it. It's not, it doesn't make it any easier. I recommend always to have them separate. So you're gonna need them separate, but save them on the same. So I can show you, I saved it on my folder on my desktop. So it's right here. So here are the two files.
Yeah, and we just copied them from the Shiny gallery.
Yeah.
That Daniela and Teresa just shared. Yeah, just answering the chat as we go along. Okay.
Great. Now let's, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, let us know if you still can't figure it out. I mean, if you're still having problems. Yeah, cool. Okay, so we're back on the RStudio window.
So now let's look at the code. As I showed you, we have on the server side, we have the code that generates the plot. On the UI, we have, this is the code that generates the drop-down menu. This is just a little bit of help text, and this is the thing that puts the plot in place. So let's run it one more time. Oops. With the code. So as you can see, title panel, telephones by region. So I'm actually pointing with my fingers at my screen, which is like the dumbest thing I've ever done on Zoom, but great. So telephones by region shows up here. That's the title panel, right? And then this is the drop-down menu. The name of the function that generates drop-down menus is select input, and then the title is region. Region is going to be the name of our input that we're going to use. Oops, come back to me. And then the plot. Great. Let me go back. And now we're going to do a little exercise. So now modify the example. So where would you go if you wanted to change the look of your plot? So the code that generates the plot is in server.r. And it's not any different from like generating a plot in the normal R. So we're going to modify that. So the first thing that I was going to suggest, and I'll give you guys a little bit of time and then I'll just like type with you. So we're going to try to modify the bar plot. I'm going to suggest removing those ugly black borders and changing the color of it, or maybe the axes. I really dislike this like notation presentation of the axes. Whatever you want, just you might want to like look at the help file for the function bar plot. I certainly will. I don't remember. I've been using ggplot for a while. I don't remember how to use bar plot very well. So we're gonna first like try to do just any modifications. Oops, did I select? And then later we're gonna try to add another plot to our app. This is a little bit harder, so we're gonna do it together. So Marilia, what do you want to do with our plot? Do you have any?
I have a, no, I didn't get this far. I was looking at the, I was looking at the chat. Someone asked,
but like, I don't know. If you look at the plot, what do you want to change about it?
Let's do, can we do, let me change the region. Can we let's change the colors, I guess, of the bars.
Okay, great. So let's do that. Yeah, I don't like those colors either. Do I remember? I would just do help bar plot.
Someone made a more interesting question. We can get to it after we change the color. It's that they see that the plot has a fixed height. Is that possible? Is it possible for us to change the height of the plot according to the size of the window?
Yeah, that's a great question. That would be actually, well, doesn't it? So you can set it on the UI, the size that the plot's going to be, by changing the panel where it is, and I can show you how to do that in a second. But I do feel like, let me run it. Does it not change if I make my window? Oh, it doesn't, right? Oh no, it changed a little bit. You see when I dragged it? So it does. Yeah, it changes a little bit as you drag it, but you can have like a fixed width or height if you want. That is changing the size is especially useful when you have multiple plots, because sometimes one plot needs to be like twice as big as the other or something like that. So in the Shiny app that I did for like the COVID stuff, I definitely had to use that. One was like a big figure and the other was like a small bar plot. So the bar plot had to be smaller. Okay, so first let's change the colors. So I'm looking here, border. I don't like that black border. If you look more carefully, it tells you that to remove the border, you can do border equals NA. And then the color is just call, just like the regular plotting function. And you can pick whatever color you want. I really like cadet blue. I'm gonna forget that comma. Like, let's run it and see what it looks like.
Ooh.
Hey, it looks a lot nicer. Pretty good. See how when I drag it, it changed size. But the size adjustment is really about like the relative sizes of things. So right now
if you change the
left
one,
so the left bar is like smaller than the right one, but we could make it even smaller in comparison. And I think to do that, you just go here and you set the width of the main panel. Oops. Yeah, so if you go to plot output on your UI, you can set the width. I think the default is too large. Sorry. Is this in inches? I never remember. Too large. I don't know. I don't remember the units for that, but you can check it out. And the sidebar, you can also change the size of the sidebar, which here they didn't specify it. But yeah, you can go with, and now we're making the panel that has just like the drop down menu bigger. No idea if this value is going to work. I'm going to find out. Yeah, live. Yeah, see now this is much wider, so now they don't fit together. Basically, that's it. Yeah, now it's too small.
Okay.
So those kinds of like the things that are more like visual, kind of like, well, I guess the things that are visual about the plot are going to be in the server side, but the things that are visual about the like how things are set up and the panels are going to be in the UI.
And the syntax on the server is similar. It's the same syntax as ggplot. Similar
On the,
or on
you
the.
think so?
I don't know. I'm asking. Is it similar?
Think it looks,
okay.
oh, if you mean if you wanted to use ggplot or no?
Yeah. I think someone asked if we can plot. Where is it? can you use
Yeah.
ggplot in server.r? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So like the next exercise that I had suggested was exactly add another plot to your app. So first you create it on server and then you tell UI to add it. I'll show you in a second. But you guys can come up with whatever you want. I had suggested a scatter plot of like North America versus the selected region. So I'll just do it here. So it's gonna be, so here, this is one plot. This whole thing is one plot. It opens here and it ends here. If you want to do another one, you're gonna give it some space and it's gonna be output. Then it's not gonna be phone plot. Let's call it plot number 2. Okay. And then I'm just copying from the top. So it's gonna be render plot with capital P. Oh my God, I'm not executing anything. Render plot, parentheses, curly brackets, space, and then the code that generates is going to be here. So let's do ggplot. Well, one thing about ggplot is that the data that we're using, this world phones data, is just have to check to make sure. I think is it a matrix or is it a data? As you guys might have heard, yeah, so it's a matrix. As you might have heard, ggplot only works with data frames.
With data frames, yeah.
So should I rework it into a data frame? What do you think? Or is that not helpful?
What's that?
I'll make it into a data frame.
Oh, yeah.
So I always look to make sure that it's written properly. Great. So here it is. I don't really love the fact that the column name, the years are the column names. So I'm gonna have to create. Sorry if this is like too tangential, but I'm gonna have to create a column that's for the years. Let me try to explain why I'm doing that. I don't know if you guys see it, but these are the columns. And you see how the first one, which is the one that has the actual numbers for the years, doesn't have a title. When it doesn't have a title like that, is usually because it's actually not a column in the data frame, but it is the names of the rows. So we don't really want that. So I created a new column. I called it year, and I said this column is just going to be the names of the rows. That's where the years are. Or alternatively, you could do just type these numbers. Okay, and now we're ready to do ggplot. Data 2. Oops. Sorry, I'm using a new. On top of all the technical difficulties, I also got a new like ergonomic keyboard. Make sure that I protect my wrist, and it's a little bit weird. So I have said scatter plot, so jump point of North America on the x-axis. So I'm looking over here to see the name of things. I don't remember it. I'm just following that. And then y, what is going to be a y? So I said that I wanted, it can be anything, but if you want it to be interactive, let's make it the one that they selected. What is the one that they selected? Right here. Okay, let's run it. See if it works.
Dun, dun, dun.
It didn't show up. Why did it not show up? Because pretending I forgot, I actually remembered. But as I said, you need to first create the plot on server, and then you need to tell UI.R to display it. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything with it. Let's go back. So now remember, the name of our plot is plot 2. Now, if you go to a UI, find the place where you added your first plot. Is right here. I'm just going to copy it. comma right here, and then I'm gonna add instead of phone plot, it's gonna be plot 2. If you called your plot something else, then it's not plot 2 here, it's whatever you called it. And when you wrote output $sign plot. Okay, let's run it again. Did not find function ggplot. What did I forget? Always forget something. That's good. That's why I do it live, because then I don't go as fast. Ta-da! This is the ugliest plot I've ever seen because it's North America versus North America. Doesn't work at all, but let's try something else. That is not good. What is going on with this plot? Maybe it is. Oh. It's not getting the numbers. Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't recognize this as the column name. Not that it did that. So you actually need to do it the way we did it up here.
I think you can use the AES string with that or something. It's weird with ggplot in the reactive object.
Yeah, I've had that problem before. And I just remember that I've had that problem many times. I think the easiest way would be to just copy it from the top. But you can use as string, that's true. Because it's reading the input as if it were a fact. Great. So this is it takes a little while to load it when you change something, but here it is. I think I forgot to multiply North America by 1,000 because the data set is by thousands, but that doesn't really matter. We just wanted to show you how to add a new plot. Great. Is everyone happy? Do we have any questions?
I think we're good. Someone asked something, but I think people replied.
Oh, awesome.
Oh,
So yeah.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Someone's asking, did you change anything in the EUI?
Why?
Oh.
Yeah, I added only line 25. So before I only had plot output in my main panel plot, and then I did comma, copied it from the top, and changed the name of the plot. So I added a new plot that I just created.
Which is the name of the object you created on server.r.
Exactly.
That one.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can go crazy. I really actually hate the ggplot default.
Oh yeah, I don't know why they have it.
Ugly.
No one likes it. Everyone changes it.
I mean, I've seen an interview with the guy who created ggplot, and he said that he made it ugly on purpose because he wanted people to not use the default. He wanted to just always like tailor it to their needs. But one little cosmetic change, and then we'll move on. Great. Still terrible. Still didn't change the axis labels, but you guys can think about it. So here's what we did. We modified the bar plot that was already there, and then we added another plot by first coding it up on server and then telling UI to display it. It will display in the order that you put it. So since it's like phone plot, comma, plot 2, phone plot's going to be on top, and plot 2 is going to be on the bottom. That's the way that it is coded right now. Okay, so now what about changing the drop-down menu? which is the part that you're interacting with. That's going to be on UI.R. And one thing that I really hate, though, from what it looks like right now, is that you have these like ugly abbreviations, right? So for North America, South America, and Central America, which has been abbreviated as Mid-America for some reason. So I suggested, well, what if we wanted to, like, for our website, we wanted to look nice and just spell it out completely. So what you need to be careful about is that you want to like type the new name, but you want to keep the connection with the names of the table, right? So we're using World Phones. We're going to be looking at it. So these are the column names. So there are two ways to go about this. You either can just go directly to the slider and then change the text that is presented on the slider, which is what I prefer, or you could actually just change the names in your data set. I prefer to change it here, because then you don't have to go to your server and change things again. So how are we going to do this? Right now, choices is literally the list of choices that you're going to have in your drop-down menu. And since it's just call names, is this list, so it's a list of strings. But if you look at the help file for select input, it will tell, oh my God, why is it doing that? Of course it happens when I'm presenting very reasonable things you want to do. I don't know what's going on.
That's weird.
If you look at, yeah. Maybe so what I would do right now is restart everything, but since I'm teaching, I'm just late, I'm doing the seminar, I'll just move on. So if you look at the help file, it will tell you that select input takes an argument called choices, which can be just like a straight up list that is going to be like the input and what you see, or it can take a named list that has the name, which is going to be what you see in the app, and the value that is actually going to be assigned. So I'll explain that in a second. So a named list, if you guys don't know, you can create any list by having like something like by using C, so a list that has A, B, C in it. That's just a normal list, but it can be a named list if you just do equals that. So right now is a list that has the numbers 1, 2, and 3 in it. And each element has a name. So the name of 1 is A, the name of B is 2. No, the name of 2 is B, and the name of 3 is C. So this is what we're going to do here. And unfortunately, I think we're just going to have to type everything. It's not that bad. I did it when I was practicing. Usually when you want text to look good, you're going to have to end up typing it again. So it's going to be North America. This is the name. But what it actually represents is n.mer, because that's the name of the column, right? I'm going to do that for everyone. Europe looks fine, so I'm just going to leave Europe. Asia also looks fine, so I'm just going to leave Asia there. South America, and you go by the order that it is here.
Mm-hmm.
South America is equal to S dot.
Oh, he's smart. I'm glad you don't have to do Oceania equals Oceania and.
Yeah, you don't have to. Understand. Like the default is for it to use. If you have a vector that's not named, it's going to use whatever you have there for both the name and the value.
Gotcha.
So if it's not named, it will do that. Africa, and then Middle America, I assume that means Central America. Oops. Right, with the commas and everything. Okay, great. So now it should look better. Let's look at it. North America right here. Europe. Still interacting normally. one thing that I didn't do is change the title. So the title still n.America. Because to do that, you have to go back to server and then tell it. It's going to be a little bit of a pain, but you're going to have to tell it that, like, if it's n America, the title is actually North America. You could do it later, but
Wouldn't it be easier to change the names in your data set? Would that change it all automatically?
Yeah, you could do that.
Okay.
And I think in this instance, in this example, it would actually be easier. But if you were doing something a little bit more complicated, or especially if you were using code that you already had, so say that for your research, you generated some plot and you already have the code that does the analysis and plots everything, then in that instance, it's easier to change it just on the UI side of things. But then you keep your server code pretty like the way it was before.
Makes sense.
And also, like here, I wasn't planning on showing that, but I can do it. But here you can like easily have names that have like spaces or special characters. There's even a way to add like markdown formatting, so you can have like equations and things in the UI side of things, whereas like in code you can't have the name of your column be an equation.
Yeah.
So if you look, actually this is an interesting point to make. So if you look at my COVID thing, which if you look at it, you'll see that there's like that parameter that is R naught. I have it as like R with the subscript 0, so that it looks nicer, whereas like in code you can't have it. Right, where are we on time? It's already. Okay, so change the code so that the regions are not abbreviated. We did that. A few more things that you could do is to change the title. You could change the sizes. You could change this help text here. You could add your name, say app by so and so. But yeah, and the last thing, but like a little bit more complicated an exercise that I wanted to show you is how do we add, so we added another plot and that's not too complicated, but how do we add another interactive? So for example, how do we add a tick box that makes the bar plot either blue or orange or something like that? So what we're gonna do in order to do things like that, I have experience with it and that's the way that I do it. We're gonna go to this website, which I can share on the chat, or someone else can do it. And this is a gallery of widgets. So the drop-down menu is a widget, and here you can see everything that you can add to your UI. And we're just gonna like blatantly copy some code. It's the best way to do things in Shiny. So this is the widget gallery. It's actually super cool. There's so many things that you can do. So here's a checkbox group. Checkbox is for when you can pick many things. Since you're gonna have, this is a single choice checkbox, true or false. This is an action button. So for example, in that other, if you look at the COVID again, when you change the parameters, you have to click a button to make it run, whereas like the one that we're doing right now, every time you change something, you just update. So that's an action button, date input, date range. I use a lot of sliders, slider range, or slider to set up your parameter. It can be text input, whatever is necessary. So let's add a checkbox that makes our plot blue. So we put down C code. Hopefully my internet will cooperate. Wow, this is taking longer than it should. So here it is. Checkbox. It's just a checkbox. So the UI, you can ignore this part. Well, not ignore, but like the food page part is already here, right? And the title panel is a widget too, the select input. We're gonna want our checkbox to go in the sidebar panel below the select input. So this is the code for the select input. We are gonna add it right here. Make some space. So checkbox inputs, blah, 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 value. We don't have to worry about the rest of it. We already have this, and this doesn't matter. So again, you can give it this is gonna be the name. So remember, it's gonna be like input $region. The same thing as this is gonna be input $checkbox. You can give it a title, color, and the label can be, oops, no, actually the label is we don't choice a color. And then value is gonna be make it something like that. We still need to think about how that's going to work on the server side, but the first thing that I do is always like run and just make sure. Oops. No.
Hmm. Do you need a comma in the end of the line after closing?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought I had it. Did I delete it?
There we go.
So yeah, the color is the label. And we're actually going to have it like this. So if make it blue is selected, the value of input $checkbox is going to be true. So right now we're not doing anything with it, but it's here. Okay, are people with me? So now let's think about what that means. So for the server code, so what this is doing is taking input $checkbox, and I'm just typing this to show you it's not going to work because the input only exists when you're running the app. So this thing is going to be equal true when it's selected, when make it blue selected, and false when it's not. So let's go back here. We want to make this plot cadet blue if that thing is true. So you can add more code here on top of the plot. So inside of the output phone plot, you put all the code that you need in order to generate your bar plot. It doesn't have to be just a function that generates the bar plot. So it's going to be if, can't type a parentheses, input checkbox plot color is going to be cadet. Else plot color is going to be black. That's the only option. Not super useful, but this is a demonstration. So now here, call is going to be plot color. Okay. Is everyone with me? So I'm using the input in this if statement, and I made all this code as necessary to generate the bar plot. So if you were running a simulation, a linear model, a regret, whatever you want, it would all be, and if you need that in order to generate this plot, you're going to run it here. And one thing to notice is that whatever you do in here only exists for this plot. So the way that we did it is not going to color the ggplot that we added later. If we wanted that to happen, we need to like put that in here as well. Think about how it works. Any questions or people? Ta-da!
Wow, that's really
Naked
cool.
blue. I know it's called cadet blue, but I feel like it's more like a teal color.
Yeah. An ocean green. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's how you add a new widget. And when you're thinking about what you want to do with Shiny, most of like developing the idea and coding it, you're going to be looking at these galleries. Because I've done like two pretty massive, like there were a lot of tabs in my sea lion one, and I did all sorts of plots, and I don't remember how to, like you saw, me copying this code was like genuinely, I didn't remember how to do a checkbox. So you're gonna always be going to this gallery and adding it to the work. So yeah, checkbox input. And the gallery shows you everything that you can add. Okay.
Anna, they are asking you to show the code again, if you can.
Of course, yeah. So, you guys want to see the UI or the?
Yeah.
No, I think it's that one because someone's having problem with the if statement.
Great. Oh, the if statement is on the server side.
Yeah. Who was
She
it?
said thank you, so I think she saw.
Oh, great. Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was just missing a parenthesis. Pretty common. Happens all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the end of
Awesome.
the if.
Great. So, Friday 6:11. I understand that this is supposed to last. Let's go back to our slide, and I'll put the code that I just wrote in that GitHub too, with the modification. Yeah, copy the code, go to the gallery, do the thing. So one example, I wanted to show you a few more examples. I think I showed you the basics of how you're gonna go about this. So you're gonna start with a simple example. These parts, the parts that I didn't really like talk about very much, which is like this function or the sidebar layout. Eventually, if you want to do something fancy, you're gonna have to like think about this. For now, just copy it. And you can go to the gallery and try to find, so for example, if you wanted something with 3 columns, there's a way to do that. You can add another sidebar panel to the right, for example. But in order to do that, you should really just find one that has 3 columns and see how they did it. But it's basically going to be sidebar panel, main panel, and another sidebar down here. So you're just going to copy it.
Great.
That's basically how it goes. And you can add explanation text, and you can add a bunch of things. So I wanted to show you guys like we saw like a simple example, and I wanted to show you this like fancier. So this was done by researchers, and I'm sure it took them a while to do it, so don't feel intimidated, but just to show you like what it can do. So it's more for like an education purpose, and it is about COVID, which is very relevant. All right, so this is a pretty cool model, pretty cool app. So as you can see, you can have one way, if you want to do an app that does a bunch of things, you can add these tabs like that. So for example, this tab and this tab, it doesn't actually have anything to interact with, any interaction in it. The authors just wanted to add information. So this is an SIR model. kind of like demonstration from this paper right here. So the paper on nature methods. And so they have this tab that lets you like download their code. So here's the code. It explains what the paper is, any version history, citation. You have one tab that's just the equations. It's also not interactive. They just type some text in here. And then they have these three tabs: the model, the mitigation, and effective vaccination. And for education, the idea is not just to like write your own app, but I for example, teach modeling, and I've been using, if you go online, again, going to the gallery is everything, or just like Googling it. If you're studying a particular thing and you want to like give it as an example to your students so they can explore parameters and understand how it works, you can find things that have already been written by other people, and now you know how to run it, right? So you're going to download the UI and the server, put them in the same folder, and just run it. This one is hosted on the internet, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. You can like the last thing. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's the spot. And then change the infection period. It changes. I don't know if you guys saw, but it automatically updated the text as well to reflect the different here, 14 days, and it changes the plot. And here you can get a real feel of how the model works without having to like write all the code to do the model itself. Here it explains all of it, all the table. And honestly, a lot of this code and a lot of this text is just lifted from their paper, right? So it looks like a ton of work, but it's not. Like most of the work is just putting the sliders here and setting up the different tabs. The rest is gravy and copying from the work that they had already done. So I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good, especially for these interactive models and you want to change equation parameters and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are some pretty good. There are some that are like not science even. There's this like virtual lab. This one is like a didactic modeling process. This one's a COVID tracker with the map. It's pretty good. It's gonna take a while to load though. These are all shiny, and like I know this looks pretty different from what we did, but a lot of it is just like they changed the font and the background color. I can show you how to do some things. You can change the background color just of the panel. So if we go back to here. Forgot that my help file is not working somehow. I think it's just here. Not working. I have no idea why. I've never seen this before in my life.
Because you're giving a live presentation.
Yeah, but the color is just an option here. You can change it, or you can just look at their code and see how they did it. Pretty good. Great. So yeah, this is a good example. I would love, I have a few more slides just on how to like publish it online. I would love to hear from people who are here if they have any ideas or any apps that they can imagine themselves doing, either for a class or for their own research. I don't know if it's gonna work for us to share audio. That's what I would like to do, but what do you think?
I think we can. There's not a lot of people participating in the chat, so maybe we won't have a big mess if we try and use the audio. So if anyone want to share an idea or something, maybe a couple of people can talk how that applies to their research. If anyone.
Tired maybe to do something, or Marilia?
Me?
Any
Yeah.
sensors might use that?
I think so, because I have this this data that I created to evaluate one of the like extinction models, and then I have to share with my PIs, and I think it would be a cool way to change the amount of species in my community and see how the extinction curve is going to change and things like that. So I'll definitely give it a try.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And since you already have the code for the simulation and everything,
Yeah.
too bad. Just remember, the only thing that is a little bit strange is that the code for your simulation and everything goes with the plot. So it's going to go like here.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll ask you for help, or Teresa. Teresa knows a lot of Shiny as well.
Do you know if you can like source scripts within the server page?
Yeah, I wasn't going to necessarily mention it, but one thing that you can do, you can have a third file called global.r. And on global.r, you can have any functions that you might use in your server side. So it's always going to load it. That's the best way to do it. So Zoom keeps getting on the way of things. Let's do a new file, script. And then I'm going to save this in the same folder, right? And then you can put functions and things like that. So let's think about it. What could we possibly use here? I cannot think of a function that I could use because those two examples are so simple.
Maybe like show the mean or something silly like that. I don't know.
Just that mean is already a function. So what would
That's true. Yeah. But anyways, but if you wanna, like, if you need to put a function inside, you can just source the global script. Is that it?
And then the functions that are on global, they can be used everywhere on server. So they can be used in here and in here in both plots. The only thing about global is that global is not going to be able to read the input. Okay, so only server and UI are the ones that communicate input and output. So here at global, you can set up a function that generates. So let's do an example. I think I can do an example. If I simply just take this code right here and make it. So that's everything.
Great name.
Yeah. Oops. Forgetting how to do a simple function in front of people. Oops. This is it. And it has to take. So it takes the input as an argument, but it does. It can't be like a script that uses the input. And then here, I'm gonna. It's a terrible function name. I'm embarrassed, but
no.
it's also such a random example that it takes input. Uh-oh.
Error sourcing.
You can go back here and like if you have an error, the panel's only going to show your error, but then you get the actual error here. Sidebar panel. This has nothing to do with what it just did. Change something in the sidebar panel. I feel like oh, I didn't close the parentheses.
I think it's the background thing. Yeah.
Thank you. I did not see that. Great. So now it's the same thing. The plot here, it's still interactive. It still changes color. But now the server side is much cleaner, and it just uses this global function that is on global.r that generates the plot. That's actually, for more complicated stuff, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Cool. Someone asked, Tessa asked about how to use Shiny, or if if Shiny can be used in certain ways. Tessa, do you mind saying what do you mean?
Can I speak or?
Of course. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I was wondering, how could I use Shiny in like maybe a PowerPoint presentation, or so they have the COVID model online, but if I wanted to have that kind of figure or like some kind of interactive plot on my own publication one day, someday, how would I put that online like that? So
That's a great question. Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. So I think most people use it online, but one thing that you can do, it doesn't interact with PowerPoint very well. That's why I'm doing the links and back and forth, but it does interact with R Markdown very well. So if you know how to use R Markdown, you can embed a Shiny app into your Markdown. So you can have an interactive R Markdown. I don't know if we can do a whole R Ladies on how to do that. So it's basically just like, I mean, the same way that you have like chunks or code in your Markdown, you can have a panel that is interactive. And
we did have a Markdown meeting. I think Tessa attended that one. Yeah. Not. Yeah. So yeah, but it's cool. You can do, for those who don't know, you can do slides in Markdown and everything. So that would be a perfect way of getting everything together on the same virtual space when you're presenting things.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with, I use Markdown for reports and things. They're usually not interactive, and I don't usually use it for slides, but I know that it's possible, yeah. Does Mark want to ask a question? I saw that you raised your hand, Mark.
Yeah, I was wondering, so let's say like once you've already generated your interactive website, and let's say you have a plot that you really like with like the perfect parameters and you wanted to share that on PowerPoint, what would be the best way to like get whatever information from your Shiny program into like a more presentable form, or instead of like a link or something?
That's a good question. I think, well, if it is code that you wrote, you can take the part that generates the plot and separate it. That might be complicated. Honestly, I think the best way is to do, like, if you have a figure that you like and you set up the parameters, you can take a print screen.
Yeah, just take a screenshot.
Yeah. So you can either like separate the code, and then you're going to change instead of having like input $, whatever the parameter is, you're going to change it to the actual value that you pick. And then you have the static code unchanged because it generates the figure that you want. Or you can just take a print screen. And honestly, like, I've been using R forever, and I know very well, I promise, how to save figures, and I use print screen all the time for like looking at output. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess I'm running out of time. The last thing, and I see that Danny has already put the link there. So the last thing that I just wanted to touch on, and I'm not going to walk you through it, but how do you make your Shiny app available to others? So there is this website, shinyapps.io, which is developed and maintained by the RStudio people who developed Shiny, essentially. And you can go there and you can create a free account. You can also create a paid one if like if your app's going to get a lot of attention, you can like pay for more like server space. But if it's a simple app and you just want it available on the internet, you can go here, create a free account, and there is a way to actually share it. It's a little bit, it's not, once you do it, it's not that hard, but you have to, if you go to the tutorial, they explain it very straightforward. So basically you're going to create an account, you're going to upload your UI and your server, and then there's a little trick so that the computer like understands the connection between your account and your our session. You guys can look at the tutorial. It's not that bad. Because otherwise, the only way to share it is to give the code, the UI and the server code to someone and have them open it on RStudio and run it, which is not the best thing. Or a Markdown to do.
Quick question. Sorry.
Yeah.
I scheduled the Zoom to finish at 6:30. Is it gonna cut us all and it's gonna crash at 6:30?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, I'm just worried because it's like 10 seconds. So if it
Well, if
crashes,
it crashes,
I'll send a
everyone
new
knows why.
link. Yeah, but yeah, I think if it crashes, sorry. Let's see if it's gonna. No, it's 6:30.
don't think-
Did it crash?
No, it will not.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think it
sorry.
only crashes if the host leaves.
Ooh, okay, cool. Sorry to interrupt.
But that was it basically. And then what is next is to leave you with something. I think what is next is to think about a project that you like to do and just really look at the gallery. The gallery is like king. Both the gallery of like ready-made apps and the gallery that has only just the widgets. And both of these things are on this website, shiny.rstudio.com. You can go there, you can explore, copy code and start modifying it, take your old code and make the plots your own. And yeah, that's how I learned, and that's how I still do it, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the best way to do it, correct me if I'm wrong, but because I've never done it, is like to have a plot that you already have, like a ggplot or something, and then think about the things you want to change and then go into the Shiny environment. It's going to be hard to try and create things inside the Shiny environment.
Yeah, and then go step by step. So first you can just add the figure without the interactive. So have the server and you can even set up your UI, but don't worry about inputs and outputs. And then you run it and you see what it looks like. And then you can add one thing that you want to customize, and then you add the second thing, and then you add the third thing. So do it like one at a time, so that, and always run it and look at it and see what it looks like. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess you can all thank Anna for joining us today. Can we do like virtual claps? I don't know how to do it.
There is a button. Do it.
Oh, there's a button?
There is like reactions.
Ah, reactions. Okay, let's all clap.
Some people are definitely doing it.
Ah, that's so cool.
I don't have that.
Oh no. Yeah, some people like if you have to go to your settings and change some things. It's a bit weird.
I'm gonna
stop.
I'll stop recording now.
Great. Yeah,
Okay.
my Twitter is on